What's going on, y'all? We are now tuned in to the Work and Play replay every Monday and Friday. Today is Friday, and today we have a really dope guest. So I said, are you ready for some truth? Are you ready for some truth serum? Listen, we are getting ready to go into the matrix and listen to one thing that we need to hear is truth about building your business as you go from corporate to entrepreneurship. And one thing I love about this person that we're going to bring up here is she speaks with such clarity, no fluff, and gives it to you straight on what you need to do to one, build your business if you're aspiring business, but also how you find ease in your business if you're an entrepreneur. So I could go on and on all day about my guest today, but I want you guys to one, like this video, share it to somebody who you know is going to help them because they're on their journey to entrepreneurship and they need this information. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her up onto the stage, Miss Tomasha Suber.
Hey, what's up, girl?
What's going on?
It is a good day. It's date day, right? Date night for us. And it's also Friday, so let's have some fun.
Oh, let's get into it. Date night.
Yeah,
See?
he's waiting on me to get done, but I'm excited. We'll have a good time. We're gonna have
So
a
we're
date
not gonna hold you long at all. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for being a guest of the Work and Play podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I don't know if you know this, but your light shines extremely bright. And it doesn't take very long for somebody to get captivated by the things that you say, right?
No.
I don't know if you know this, but it's like straight to the point, exactly what you needed, no chaser. I'm gonna give you exactly the medicine that you needed. So I told
Mm.
everybody I could literally go on and on about you and the things that you've done over since I've connected with you. But before we get into the live, I would love for you to introduce yourself and let folks know where you repping from. Rep your city.
Yeah, so if you are not familiar with me, my name is Tomasha Suber, representing the state of Florida. Holla at Florida. I feel like we don't have enough people representing Florida sometimes in these interviews. It's either like Miami, that's all people here, but I am representing Central Florida from Gainesville. And I am a growth strategist and leadership development coach. And I help business owners to develop strategies that prioritize business and people development without sacrificing one for the other.
100%. Let's start there because on the podcast, we talked about your journey from corporate into entrepreneurship. And if those of you guys who have not seen the episode, go ahead and check out episode 83 right now because we talked about the details, the ups and downs, and Tamasha shared a little bit of her personal life, right? But then
Mhm.
that last piece about not sacrificing your personal life is the part where we are today. And I'm curious, in your journey, when did you identify that being a pain point for a lot of folks who are in their transition and growing?
Identify just the idea of having to sacrifice one for the other. I feel like I saw it even in corporate. So I think a lot of the things that I apply in business and entrepreneurship are things that I 100% saw throughout my corporate journey, but especially when I started running my own business and consulting with people, I noticed that the business would be doing extremely well. It would start to like take off. And even you find people who have been in business a long time, they'll be doing well, but then it would be like them themselves personally, their lifestyle, their marriages, their relationships, they would begin to suffer. And me personally, I always had the goal of if I'm going to be successful in a business, if I'm going to have all the things publicly, I want to have just as much success privately and be happy.
Privately and be happy. That is the dream. I don't know about you guys, but when you're in entrepreneurship, this content creation sometimes feels like that's the job. Now, I know there are some like full-time content creators, but as an entrepreneur, when you're promoting your business and utilizing social media as a function, it can
Yeah.
almost feel like that's your job, right? And you can get
Yeah.
caught up in the likes and the engagement and
Hmm.
forget about revenue, right? So, in as you coach people, how do you get people to differentiate the engagement and the momentum that it comes from like follows and feeling like you're moving because you're on social media and you're getting so much traction, but
Yeah.
not necessarily moving monetarily?
Ooh, you know what? I think one of the bigger things that I do is I get people to understand that I think a lot of people, when they think about getting on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever social platform they use, they equate their success to the platform. And I get my clients to really understand that without you, right, being on the platform, the money wouldn't happen. I think too many people put it the other way. Well, without Instagram or without Facebook, I wouldn't be anything. But the point is that if Instagram shuts down today, Tomasha's going on Twitter. If Twitter shuts down the next day, I'm going to go on LinkedIn. And if that shuts down, someone else is creating something else, right? But at the end of the day, the common denominator is you. So
Yeah.
I first get my clients to acknowledge, understand, and own the fact that you are the heart of what it is that you're doing. Your skill set, your expertise, your choice to continue to show up. And I think too many people put their identity into the platform instead of into their business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And to your point, if any one of these platforms goes down, then it's time to leverage another platform because they all exist. In,
Exactly.
in your business practice, do you suggest someone like, because the thing is, there's also this pull of wanting to be on all of the platforms at the same
Yeah.
time. Do you,
Mhm.
in your business, do you give a best practice around like being on 1 to 3 or all of them or just focusing on one?
I tell people, even though I'm not a social media guru, right, but my own personal experience and what I've seen in business, I suggest people to show up on as many platforms that you know you can show up at your best. And I see too many people going to multiple platforms, and one of them is only getting the rest of them and not the best of them. If I'm going to show up on a platform, I'm going to give you my best, right? I'm not going to be splitting my time between 2 or 3 platforms and it's just getting the rest of me. Then I'm not getting the results. I'm not seeing the data that I want. I'm not seeing the traffic. So if you're not going to be able to give your best on both, stick to one. There's no point in half doing it. I want to get paid fully. So when I show up, I'm showing up fully. So that's what I tell people to do. Whichever one you feel like you can do best with, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, just show up fully there. And I'm going to hold them accountable to that.
I love it. Speaking of accountability, your content really does like when I don't mean to go extra with it like dramatic,
Mm.
but your content really does hold a lot of people accountable because it's, I'm thinking of like, a lot of people like you hit it very specifically and it's just like, "Oh, yeah, you know what? That makes me want to think about how that shows up in my business." Even if I'm not 100% feeling some type of way, I'm like, if I do, then I think about how do I want to improve on my business. So speaking of accountability, you have a way of hitting the mark in your teaching, like on social media for sure, without, I guess, disrespecting, right? It feels
Yeah.
very like I care about you and I want you to win. Have
Hmm.
you thought of, or because I know you have, right? How have you evolved your process
Hmm.
to helping people develop in their pain point?
Ooh, to helping people. What exactly are you asking me? Because I feel like you're asking me 2 things at once. I want to make sure I
Ooh,
answer the right side of it.
you know what? I love it. I love it. So let's get specific because my mind goes all over the place. What I
Yeah.
mean is, let's say oh, okay. Here's a good one. You went on live months ago
Hmm.
and you were talking about someone who didn't want to take like a full payment, right? And you were
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
it's okay to take payment plans. Like you can take a payment plan if someone can afford you on a payment plan, then that's okay, right?
Right.
But and so the way you were delivering is very like, no, this is exactly how I feel about that. But it
Hmm.
also was inviting to say, hey, if this is you, I can help you. Like this is something that we can work on. So your
Yeah.
approach is very like, hey, this is exactly what you need to fix based
Hmm.
on Tomasha's philosophy, but then
Right.
also very welcoming, very inviting, and not very judgmental. So that's the
Ooh,
approach
okay.
that I'm talking about.
Yeah. So for me, I know for a fact that walking through the journey of business, the last thing that anyone needs to feel is judged. I'm going to be direct and I'm going to let you know what could work and I'm going to let you know what my methodology might be, give you some information. But at the end of the day, your business is your business. What you decide to work on is what you work on. What steps you decide to take, they're yours. And so when people come to my environment, they might feel a little triggered, right? And you might want to shake the table sometimes, but at the end of the day, I want you to know that it all comes from love. And so I work extremely hard at not presenting some of the same things that I know people have experienced previously, right? No one's going to want to go through business and feel like every step that you make was because you felt judged, right? Because then you didn't make that decision out of empowerment. You didn't make that decision because you know that the data said you need to do it. You didn't do it because you know that that's the next best thing for your business. You did it because you felt embarrassed. You did it because you felt like you had to. And I want people to start leading their businesses and making decisions from a place of 100% I know this is what I need to do, not feeling like I'm pushing you up against the wall. I don't necessarily like that sales tactic. And so my way is for you to feel welcome. Hey, I'm giving you an answer and you are free to walk in the door if you so choose. And if not, I still love you the same.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm thinking about your VIP days, your tour that's coming up.
Yeah,
Y'all, if you don't know, I will be in the house and I cannot wait to learn from Tomasha.
I'm excited to
Friend,
see you in Atlanta. Atlanta's
I'm
like one of my favorite cities, I promise.
Come on, we're gonna give you all the good energy. We're gonna make sure this is one you receive good energy. That way you can give us the most
Yeah.
value. Because I know how this thing works. So I'm excited. Those of you guys who don't know, if you're gonna be tuning in, just know if you see me growing, it's because of this lady right here. So
Yeah.
on top of that, it's your leadership structure. So you've grown as an entrepreneur. So
Ooh,
your come on,
ooh.
release.
Listen, yes, I have grown.
And your content reflects it, your teaching reflects it. And I'm curious of how much you lead from a personal perspective as well
Mm.
as research versus your life in corporate. Like what would you say is your mix of information
Ooh.
as you decide what approach you take when you're coaching someone?
I definitely feel like my approach to business mentorship coaching strategy is definitely broken up into quarters. So 25% personal experience, 25% corporate experience, 25% what I've experienced through working with clients. I utilize that a lot. And then the other piece is consistently and working diligently to always stay abreast to what's needed in the industries. So I don't necessarily just work with people online. Like my clients typically come to me with professional backgrounds. Sometimes they have degrees. And so it takes intentionality. I sit down and I research their backgrounds. I get to know exactly what's required for them to do what they do. And so I definitely feel like it's well balanced across the board. It's not just my own knowledge. It's corporate background. It's what I've seen work for previous clients, what I've seen hasn't worked for previous clients. And then also just staying abreast and continuously investing in my own development. So for sure it's balanced.
Got you. Those of you guys who are joining, we are having a conversation with Tomasha Suber. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what are you thinking about this conversation so far? I know either you're in your business and you want to be an entrepreneur, or you're already an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out what's that balance between personal and grind, right? And so
Yeah.
if you have a thoughts, put it in the chat, like, share, and subscribe, and we appreciate all of the things. Okay. So listen, I'm getting into it, right?
Love it. I
I
love
don't
it.
want to forget. You mentioned you are aware of like what your clients experience. And
Mhm.
you seem like you have a really good pulse on like what a client's issue might be right now. What are you seeing right now in the coaching space, or even in the entrepreneurship space as it relates to leadership and growth development?
Ooh, wow. Several things come to mind. I think one of the most pressing things right now in this moment is people determining by which way they want to be able to bring revenue or income into their household. I think that there is a lot of looming judgment around whether or not you're a full time entrepreneur, part time entrepreneur, going and getting a job, working a job, having a business. And I just want people to understand and know that it does not matter which one you choose, right? No one is higher or lesser than any other. And I find too many people holding back their ambitions, right? Like maybe you do corporately want to work and also have a business. That's great. Maybe you want to be a full-time entrepreneur and have no, like job working for someone else. That's cool too. And if you want to mix it up, that's great. But I see a lot of looming judgment and just so much concern about how they run their business or how they decide to have a day job or not. And so that for me, I think is one thing that we're going to continue to see this evolution of people's perspective of, employment versus entrepreneurship, right? Like entrepreneurship just started to be accepted. To be honest with you, when you think of, especially in the corporate realm or even educationally, they just started having master's and bachelor's programs in entrepreneurship, right? And they're still teaching theory. A lot of these people get out here and they still struggle to run a business.
Yeah.
But I want people to understand that there is just as much, I think the security of it all, like we talked about on our interview,
Yeah.
to me is the same. People feel like entrepreneurship is more secure than a job, and I don't agree. I think that they both have their risks. They just look different. And so to me, I feel like that is one of the most pressing things right now is it's really weighing on people's mindset and their ability to determine their value in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's actually really good that you say that, because I'm specifically in that space where there's people who are currently in corporate and they're thinking about whether they want to leave.
Mm,
Very similar to where I was when I'm like, I actually was dying to leave, but I was afraid to leave because I was like, I don't think nobody's gonna pay me for my gift, right? And as you
yeah.
mentioned, you mentioned on the clip that I shared, which is like, you know, we aren't prepared, or we're not taught to look in the mirror and see our value. Hey, I can make
Mhm.
$1 million on my own. And therefore, I've noticed that my content swings a certain extreme way. But what
Mhm.
I've learned, I've also realized in my own coaching is that there's a level of empathy that's required to be
Mhm.
able to like allow somebody to just flow and figure out where they want to be, whether it's a corporatepreneur, like you said, or
Right.
for somebody who's like, hey, I tried the full-time thing in entrepreneurship and I kind of want to go back to corporate without
Right.
feeling judged. You
Mm.
mentioned a really, that's like I'm actually, you'll see, more of me being able to like show that empathy, because I do understand, but I know
Yeah.
I've created like content that's very much
Yeah. And
going
there's so much value to it, right? Like I meet people literally that come out of corporate and they will walk the dog on some of these people that have been online talking about they making millions or making whatever they're making when it comes to running a business. There
like,
is something really special and unique. And I tell people, whether you have a degree or not, about working in a job, if you actually take it and leverage the skills that you're being taught, leverage everything they're offering you. I went to every leadership development thing that they had offered. I went to all the HR classes that I could go to within my daytime that I was open to doing, right? Like I got all the tuition. I literally maxed out my tuition reimbursement at every job I worked, right?
yeah,
There's so many people sitting in their jobs complaining about wanting to have more freedom and wanting to do more things. But baby, when you get out here, you got to do all that investing on your own, right? You got to pay
straight
for all
up.
of the development on your own. So a
Mhm.
lot of the things that I learned and I did, I took the opportunity that I had in my day job. And so too, for those of you that are thinking about it and you feel some type of way, how great would it be to have your employer pay for that payment plan that you're on right now? How great would that have been? You know what I mean? So we have
Absolutely.
to look at it from both sides of the coin. I'm here at this point now, but your girl, when I first started my business, I was like maxing out reimbursement left and right. So,
As you should have, which honestly and truly, it speaks to the level of investment that you actually have out here as an entrepreneur.
mm-hmm,
And like you said, a lot of corporate professionals, if they leverage their job as they should, can run circles around a lot of entrepreneurs who've never had a job before. The way that
100%.
I see it, and you can let me know how you see it, but it's like when I became an entrepreneur, when I started identifying, because I quit my job way before I started identifying as an entrepreneur. I said,
Mm,
okay, well, there's this corporate side of me that I love structure and I love to be able to put together programs and like SOPs and all
yeah,
of the things, right? But then when it comes to like those entrepreneurs who've never had a job before, there was a level of risk taking, there was a level of naivety that they were comfortable with.
yeah,
And like they didn't have to wait for like multiple approvals and iterations to just put something out
right.
there and see if it
Yeah.
sticks. Do you
Mm-hmm.
see that dichotomy? And I'm sure you could add some more context to just that simple comparison. But what would you say that you've noticed is the difference between a corporate raised professional and
Yeah.
like a entrepreneur raised professional?
Oh man, I feel like both sides have their pros and their cons, or like or you say their strengths and weaknesses. I think that's a better words. But I would say for sure on the entrepreneur side, one thing that I admire about people who may not have come up in that corporate environment, or maybe they weren't there long enough, right, to kind of hold on to some of the things that we're taught, is that they literally will take risk like I've never seen before, right? And so you have those of us that come from corporate where we are taught to assess and analyze multiple times, right? The level of risk, like what are we risking here? What is this going to mean? If it doesn't work, what happens? And so I think that in entrepreneurship, you see people, they can move a lot faster if they've never really been in that environment. And that's great for them, right? You see some people, they do extremely well. But
Yeah.
then sometimes that comes to bite you in the butt, right? When you probably should have sat down and actually thought through, well, what am I actually risking here? What is this going to mean? And like going through those different channels and creating what's going to be our decision making process. And so while I do see entrepreneurs that haven't had that background move extremely fast, on the other side of it, I see them complain more frequently and often about having made bad decisions, right?
Ooh,
And
look at you
because of
about to drop the mic.
Yeah, and decisions that cost them in such an extreme and mighty way. And but then on the other side, right, you have people that come from corporate again, and we are more risk averse because we look at all the details, most of us, not all of us, and we might move a little bit slower. And sometimes we may miss out on opportunities because we move so slow. Sometimes we may miss out on opportunities because mentally we got stuck in the risk of it all. And so again, you see both sides having a strength, but then there's also that weakness that pops up, and it's which one is worse than the other. I'm not sure. It just depends on how bad the bite is.
Right. And also the life that you're dealt, right? The hand that
Mhm.
you're dealt on, you talked about this on the podcast. You some people might have chosen to be uncomfortable and jump into entrepreneurship and you were more
Right.
so forced out. And through your experience, you had to learn how to make this thing shake. So
Oh
if
yeah.
you would talk a little bit about your personal journey, just so folks know who we're talking to, that would be helpful.
Listen, I mean, my journey didn't start by like, oh my gosh, like I had already kind of started my business, kind of playing around a little bit. And but to be honest with you all, and I share this as much as I can, I never desired, and I still really don't desire to be a CEO, right? Like I saw myself having businesses, but fully functioning in an owner role, right? Like having someone to really run the day to day, because the things we hear on the internet about I'm the CEO, someone else runs my business, most of them are literally CEOs. They don't know the difference. So
Mm,
I really want to be more of an owner. So I kind of got pushed into CEOdom because I lost my job. So here I am, right? I get this 30-day notice, this pink slip. Thank God it came with a check. I always had my my eyes and everything always dotted, my T's crossed. But I was here and I said to myself in that moment, I literally felt like, and this moment that everyone talks about, I was like, man, I feel like I don't really have anything to pull at other than my savings account and, like this check that I'm going to get because they're letting me go. I don't really have anything else to pull at. Right. And this business was still in its infancy. And so for me, I made the decision that no matter whether I decided to go back to corporate or not, because I'm still open to it. If someone wants to pay me enough, I will definitely go back. I've always said that. But I wanted to position myself and my family that if we needed to, right, if something like this happened again, all of my eggs didn't feel like they were in one basket. And so here I am now. I run my business. I try to keep it's very much boutique. I don't desire for it to be really huge. And I think that's another thing we could talk a lot about, Ariel, is the fact that I hear too often coaches and people on the internet, strategists, gurus, whatever, telling people that their goals are not big enough. And I
mm,
really want to speak to that
yeah.
because coming from a family where we had a modest income, but it definitely wasn't a great income. We were for sure, going to be in that poor bracket. I think too many people are speaking so highly based on where they're at and not where they came from
Wow.
to people. And so I heard someone say the other day, and I think this is really huge for us. It's like if you're only making 100, 150,000, you literally just hit, but that's just not enough. And I say
Mhm.
to myself, how is that not enough? You got some people who never dreamed, right? Like getting that 50 or 75K salary was like a big deal. You know what I mean? Like they're like the highest earner in their family. And so for us to say things like someone's goal of just getting to six figures or just getting to 1.5 or 200,000 is not enough and they got to be going for 1 million. I think that's another problematic thing that I see so much in business, especially on the internet, because people have lost the perception of the real world.
Yeah.
What do the statistics say the average household income is? And then how do we look at something like 100 to 250,000 for one person and say, oh, that's not enough?
That's so real. But
Most
the
of those people don't have
pressure,
team members,
say
right?
that
So
again.
most of those people don't have team members. So if you're making 100 to $200,000 and you ain't got nobody but maybe someone to help you check emails, you living. In my opinion, that's a lot of money.
Taking home. Yeah. I 100% agree. I think just you saying that, it reminds me of the voices that are on social media, right? And it
Mhm.
creates this, I guess, this perception of pressure, right? That just makes you feel like I have to X, Y, and Z. Not
Mm,
just this one point of making over six figure, or that six figures could be 100,000 or whatever, and that whatever you make is not enough, but
right.
also all of the other echo chambers of thought that happen on
Mhm.
social media, which to me equals pressure, especially for like a new entrepreneur. for
Mm,
you growing up. And I think I've listened to enough of your lives to know
yeah,
that you reached a point where you're like, listen, Tamasha's gonna go with Tamasha's perspective,
yeah.
and she's gonna have to differentiate herself from these other perspectives. What was that process for you to let go of that pressure or stop looking at like the external world or the social media world as what you have to do and show up as you want to show up?
I think it was really not think. I know that it was. There was a point when I think I was in maybe year. It was like right after I finished grad school and I was in my first year of kind of starting my business just slowly and quietly. And I found myself having moments of like panic and stress unnecessarily. Like I'm working full time, I'm making good money on my full time job, I'm doing my business slowly. And I started feeling this sense of panic, like I was behind. And I've always been a person who I'm very self aware. Like my friends laugh at me sometimes, but I could be very aware of my emotions and what I have going on with myself. And I just kind of like caught myself in a moment and I was like, what are you panicked about? Like, why are you waking up in the middle of the night having these feelings of like, oh, I should do this, or like staying up all times of the day and night because I got to do X, Y, and Z because I got to get to this goal so fast, or because I got to do X, Y, and Z by this date, or all my other friends are moving at this pace, and so I should do what they're doing. I should invest in what they have going on. And I realized that it just really didn't matter what anyone else had going on around me because at the end of the day, it was just going to be me. If my business failed, it's just going to be me,
Yeah.
right? If I need to get my light bill paid, it's just going to be me or some government assistance. And I got a couple friends that are probably pay a light bill or two. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we find ourselves putting the values and the goals of other people onto our business and onto ourselves. And it's not actually healthy. So in that moment, I decided, you know what? As I go forward, I'm going to be really clear about what my goals are. I found myself chasing what I thought I was supposed to be doing and not what I knew was going to be serving and edifying me personally. And so from that moment forward, I said, hey, when I create goals in my business, I'm going to be really clear as to what they connect to. If I say I want to make $1 million, there's a point behind it. That's really my dream. It's really my goal. And I know for a fact that I'm going after it because I want to go after it. Or am I really giving 250, 300? Am I really giving half a mil? Am I really just giving six figures?
Come on.
That
You
was more or
like
less my goal. I was like, I'm just going to stick to myself.
Yeah. When you said the write down your goals, I feel like and I feel like you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I feel like that's where you describe the different layers of leadership. And I caught on to the CEO versus the owner. And then
Mhm.
on the on the podcast, we talked about COO versus CEO. And
Yeah.
so before we get out of here, I would love for you to break down the levels of leadership, perhaps. If I'm breaking this,
Mm.
if I'm saying it right, hopefully, but the levels of leadership, right?
Yeah.
And then in your perspective, or in like Tamasha's textbook definition, what you identify as the balance. If it's like,
Mm.
life versus personal, front of the camera versus behind the camera, how do you differentiate those levels of leadership?
So levels of leadership to me, they look very different. And I think that we go back and forth between the levels. And that's something that people don't want to talk about often enough as well. So the first level of leadership to me is the one where you are being guided by a leader. Right. And that might be, you think about elementary school, right? At the beginning where you're learning how to walk in a straight line and not get out of it. You're learning how to put your toys away when they say do it, following instruction. That's when you're in guided leadership. And then the next level is when you are in self leadership, where you have learned enough by being guided that you can now guide yourself. And that's normally where we spend a lot of our time in business is in that self guidership, right? Until we get to the place to where we do have to start leading others in what we want. So that's level 3 to me, where you might start having a team or you start bringing people into your business to help you and you're having to guide and lead them and show them the way, right? And then outside of that, right, after you get those people in place, and people stop there. They think once I've gotten to the place where I got team members and I'm leading folks and I'm telling them what to do, that's it. That fourth step, where people normally don't talk about enough, is when you have now turned into the actual guide and the force of leadership, and you are now behind. You are leading from behind. I want to get to a point to where things like small things in business and small things that go on in my companies, you really just don't ever see me. It's always the team. They're the most highlighted thing. That's when you know that you've really evolved fully inside of your leadership, because now you become the force. Like I see it as almost like this invisible force behind your team members, pushing them, and they can go and do those things, and then they become leaders. So
Mm,
there's 4 steps to it. Where you are being guided, right? Someone's guiding you and showing you what you need to do, then
mm-hmm,
you become responsible for yourself. That's self
mm-hmm,
leadership. Then
mm-hmm.
you be able to lead other people and influence them, right, through your actions, words, and guidance. And then
Yes.
the next thing is you become so good at that and you've done so well that now they are leading themselves and now you are producing leaders. So I feel like it's definitely a 4 step process.
I love that. It's so
Mhm.
clear too. She knows her
Yeah.
stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
There is so one. I don't want to keep you from hubby because I respect it.
Oh, you're fine.
That's where I'm going with it, right? Like I'm trying to get my date night on. But I was thinking, for someone who is thinking about, oh, I gotta get to after you done broke it down and you said that there's a whole process. It's still like, oh, I can't wait to get to level 4.
Yeah.
In terms of pacing yourself, because I feel like you have a pace yourself spirit about you, like pace yourself, young grasshopper.
Yeah, I do. I do. I really believe that the turtle is always the hurdle always wins the race. I see so many people trying to just sprint through everything, and I fully believe that we have to go at our own pace.
So speaking of which, there's somebody right now. We got a couple folks on the live listening, and there's like this desire to be at step 4, and there's a process to get to step 4.
Hmm.
So, in your experience with your own coaching clients, and even in your own experience, if I can ask this question this way, it's like, how much time would you like suggest somebody spend in each space? Or because I know everything is so flexible,
Yeah.
but what would be your suggestion on helping someone pace themselves along the journey?
So I think what the better question to ask would be,
Mm-hmm.
which level or phase do you think is most important to the
Mm.
development and growth of a person? And I would definitely say phase 2. Phase 1 and phase 2. We are so quick to want to bark orders and tell other people what to do and to say that we have a team and to say that we're leading this glorious movement. When in reality, behind the scenes, where people struggle the most is their own leadership, their own discipline, their own decision making, right? Their own ability to clearly outline and draw their vision, to clearly communicate and say what it is that they need and what they want. And so we have to do a really good job in those moments where we are given the opportunity to be guided by other people, right? When you say that you have a mentor, when you say that you have someone that's helping to guide you, actually being guidable and coachable in those moments. I see so many people that think that they're great leaders, but they have a very difficult time following. And I will tell you that that is not a great leader, right? And we'll say things like, well, I was just meant to have my own business and I just can't work for corporate because I can't follow the rules. Those people normally are the ones that we see last about 3 to 5 years because you can't follow people, right? And so steps 1 and step 2 of that being guided by someone, but then also being able to work on your own discipline, work on your own commitment, work on your own ability to show up for yourself, work on your own ability to hold your own boundaries, right? We talk so much about people breaking our boundaries, but we break them constantly ourselves. So those are the 2 most important areas, is really getting a hold and a grip on you, being able to lead you. Because when you do that, when you bring on those team members, those people should actually be managing up. They should be turning you into a better you. And the only way that they can do that is when you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and when you're really clear on how you are best led and what you actually need.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all, did y'all catch that leadership language, managing up?
Mhm.
There's a whole book on. There's so many books on managing up. Like people, that is definitely a thing for those of you guys who have not caught on that. And 100%, I'll be honest and share in my journey. Have been times where I've been super structured in my own time schedule,
Yeah.
and lately I
Everyone
have
can raise
found.
their hand.
Listen, I falling asleep at 12 o'clock at night, and then I'm wondering why can't I wake up at 5 o'clock like I used to? And I'm mad,
Yeah.
right? But so for the last like 3 days, I've been going to sleep at 9 o'clock, and I'm really patting myself on the back because you said it, self-discipline.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that I think that, being able to sit in that, especially for my audience, as we're trying to decide whether, leaving corporate America is a good fit, or if getting another job before becoming an entrepreneur is a good fit. Whatever
Right.
your journey is, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of self mastery. Because before you
Yes.
get to level 4, you got to know who you are and what it took for you to get there.
Yes. I think too many people want to skip the self mastery part. And that's how you end up in programs where we hear these terrible stories about the coach turning me into something I didn't want. Well, clearly you didn't know what you wanted to begin with, or they wouldn't have been able to turn you.
Yeah.
Right.
You're speaking to somebody, y'all.
So
Woo!
often, and I say this with all sincerity, so often we find people complaining about where they are, but I imagine that you didn't know where you were going when the journey started.
Yeah.
You just got in the car and started driving. So you can't be upset when you do that and you're not clear where you're going. And that's just, I use this analogy all the time. I tell my clients, like, be clear as to where we are going on vacation. Because if you end up going somewhere it's cold and you bring beach clothing, you're going to feel out of sorts. And if you are not clear where you are going on the map, you will find yourself ill prepared and you have no one to blame but yourself.
Come on. Come on. Listen, if y'all haven't gotten a word, you got to just replay this message and get to it, because I think that just like I receive a gem every single time, I got multiple. Okay. So before we get out of here, Tomasha, can you tell us what we have to look forward to? Those who are already excited to continue working with you or continue following your journey, what are the ways for people to connect with you?
So the ways for you to connect with me is definitely come and connect with me on Instagram at Tomasha Suber. That is my primary playground. You might find me on other platforms, but for now, that's where if you DM me, it is 100% me. And we are currently working on a CEO success tour. I'm going to a couple of different cities. Excited to do that and kind of just go out and meet my people. But outside of that, 100% definitely check out working with me at a VIP day. That is my signature service. That is the one that I know people absolutely love. And we can work together to help you come up with a plan that'll help you develop not only in business, but also personally.
100%. Hey guys, thank y'all for tuning in. Drop some hearts in the chat or in the comments. Like this again, subscribe, and honestly, let us know what you think. Where are you in your journey? Because honestly, it might not feel good when you get to the reality, but the only way for you to be able to grow is for you to know exactly where you're at. So I just want to say thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you so much, Tomasha, for joining us and for dropping so much truth.
Thank you for having me. It was honestly, it was such a good interview, and I can't wait until we maybe connect again.
100%. Enjoy your nicest.
Thank you.
Thank you.